Joining me right now is an all-around badass who spent his entire morning in a helicopter staring at wild hogs. And he just stares at them and they fall in the field. They give up. Like, he doesn't even have to squeeze the trigger. They just drop. They're like, it's Tim Kennedy in the air. Tim Kennedy, as everybody knows, he's a UFC fighter, special forces operator as well, unapologetically American, great headband. Always so good to see you, Tim. Thanks for your time today.
That's my pleasure. I wish they would have just laid down and died. It would have saved me $1 bullet.
Right? I know. Ammunition's precious nowadays. Just glare
Crazy
at them.
times.
Yeah, I'm surprised more didn't. Talk to me a little bit, because you tweet. I mean, you tweet about, the wokery stuff, and you talk about law enforcement, and a lot of it, and you get that culture is also upstream from politics. Talk to me a little bit about this, because I really do feel like there's this effort to sever any alliance that Americans have with these institutions that they've long supported, that have been really representative of of the American ideals. Like, I would consider military and our armed forces, it's like American iconography, and there's really this effort to ruin that relationship, I think, between Americans and military. And then you have all these stories, that I just mentioned, and news of war games not going so great in the Pacific. I'm just, a little concerned. Tim, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, you should be concerned. It's strategic. Sorry. Without a doubt, anytime if you look at unconventional warfare, what we do is you go to a population and you identify a center of gravity. That center of gravity is the thing that makes them tick. It's the important elements to a culture, to a people, to a gender, to a race. And once you identify what those are, you destabilize those ideas. And, you listed some very cornerstone American, baseball, NASCAR, hunting, the military. These are things that are above reproach. Like, these are just elements, like apple pie and corn on the cob and and a beer on a Sunday afternoon on your front porch. These are really cool, iconic American things, and you identify those, and then you demonize them. Then you make them be bigots and racists. And this attack on the military has been happening for a long time. It's been happening for about the past 10 years. And, one of the very first things that the administration did when they moved in after the inauguration was they had the new Secretary of Defense go after radicals within the ranks. Yeah. There aren't. Yes, there might be like this insanely minuscule, I can't even put a number on it because they're so insignificant, because we clean up our own, right? Like, if there's a racist prick over there, like, I'm going to go take care of him, and he's not going to be in special forces. That's what we do. And but national headlines about how we've been infected by alt-right and extremists and racists, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. And with all the branches of government, normally we're above reproach, right? You look at the military, and there's confidence. The military is not going to be leveraged for political purposes. The military is there for one purpose, and that is to be lethal and to fight our wars and to protect our country and to protect our Constitution. But now they're being weaponized. Now they're being manipulated. We saw it during the shenanigans in D.C., where we saw soldiers on the floor of the White House and the Capitol. We saw them sleeping in garages, and then we see them walking down the halls of Congress as if they're part of a parade, right? They're just being manipulated. And commanders in the military, they need to wake up. They need to realize that they're being used for political purposes and put their foot down, because we just can't stand for it. We have to be better than that, because we have to go and fight wars.
Right. No, and talking to Tim Kennedy, and I know that so much of this, it's like top down. Like, soldiers are, they follow their orders and they're awesome. And you get some of these leaders in there, and a lot of it can be politically motivated. How someone gets up the upper echelon, whether it's Pentagon, DOD, etc. And so you start to see some of the stuff that we saw this week, where it seems like there's an awful lot of focus on moving I don't want to say moving the entire military's purpose, but moving the military to seemingly be more, or at least the leaders, to be more aware of this like cultural wokery stuff, and less focused on, like, for instance, this thing that the article that I want to make sure I cite it properly. One of the articles that came up, and it was reported widely now anyway, but this was in Yahoo News, and there was also an AP story about recent war games in the Pacific suggest we wouldn't win a head-to-head conflict if any hostilities were to break out over Taiwan. And it's a really well thought out, well informed piece. And I'm wondering, I mean, is that the point though? I mean, would focusing on the wokery aspect of it hide the lack of readiness for that? Or has everything culturally been shifting to the point where we're just behind now military wise, because we've been focusing on politically correct things instead of military readiness and just being a kick butt fighting force?
Yeah. It's tragic. Like, I can't load my magazines with wokery. I can't walk up to an A10 or an A15 and strap on a big, huge bomb of wokery, right? Like that's, I don't even know wokery is a word, but I'm using it because it sounded right.
Yeah,
it is now. It's China is trying to make part of their education, their men more manly. They are not, they have concentration camps full of people that don't believe in communism, full of them.
Yeah.
And so they don't care about any woke element. They don't care about any trans issues. They don't care about any race issues. They care about making China the most dominant superpower in the world. And, and by 2049, they want it to be the most powerful superpower in the history of the world. And we're sitting here arguing about, what gender should be on a bathroom door, about, the pronouns that should be on a Twitter handle, if Gina Carano should be working for Disney. As a military person, I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about lethality. I care about the Constitution. I care about when my commander says, hey, China looks like they're going to be able to kick our ass in a war. We're going to have to figure this out, and we're going to have to figure it out really fast, because they're not going to go to war with us right now. They're going to go to war with us in 12 years. And not only will we be so pathetically incapable of fighting our own wars, we won't even have a military or a people that trust the military that can go and do it. So we got to right this ship. This is not sustainable.
How do we reverse something like this, Tim? How I mean, because I know it's been years in the making, and the answer is not easy, and it's not going to happen in just 1 year or one election cycle. But particularly with the military, how does this change?
I mean, it has to start both culturally on a grassroots level. Parents have to be telling their kids. When I grew up, I could look at a Green Beret. I could look at John Wayne, right, in the movie The Green Beret, and I could look at John Rambo, and I could be like, man, those guys are awesome. Right? Like those people are fighting for goodness. They're fighting for virtue. They're fighting for morals. And now it's like, ooh, the military, they do icky things, like they kill civilians. No, we don't. Like we do the best, better than what I think is possible for a human, the military is able to do when it goes to fighting our wars. And so when I say it culturally has to be shifted, we have to embrace the ideas of freedom. We have to embrace masculinity. We have to embrace lethality. And that's a really weird thing when you're on the outside looking in. When I'm not, Tucker Carlson can say whatever he wants. Like that's part of having freedom of speech and freedom of press. But lethality, it is indifferent to race. It's indifferent to gender. All that matters is ability. All that matters is capability. I'm not going to look at a unit and judge them on how many blacks they have in the ranks or how many women they have in the ranks. I'm going to look at that unit and I'm going to measure their capability, and nothing else matters. Nothing else. But when you have influence, external influence that removes the measurement of lethality, capability, and ability, and they start gauging success on who is in the ranks, that is a slippery slope that ultimately will lead to defeat.
Yeah.
Period.
You bring up so many good points. We're talking to Tim Kennedy. And last thing for you, Tim, and we were telling everybody Tim was in the chopper this morning, staring down hogs and killing them from the sky, just staring them with
my workout buddy's sitting out here. He's like, hey, are we getting back to work?
I know. They're like, come on, we got gains to get. What is up? I got to get my protein shit. No, I know. I need that kind of, by the way, I need to transform my garage to look like that right there. And I need to convince my husband to let it happen. So far, he's like hesitant.
Dude, anytime.
See?
Well, this side, all we got is, that's all elk, deer meat.
Look at that. Full freezer. That's where it's at. That's the healthiest meats you can eat. Last thing for you, Tim.
That's it.
You brought up, there's so many great points that and it's like a multi-aspect thing. It's not, and you mentioned the cultural aspect too. When it comes to China, it's not just about, switching out military leaders. It's also switching out consumer attitudes. I mean, here, I just had a headline about Disney putting a warning sign on Aladdin, but yet they won't put a warning sign on the fact that they got literal genocide camps in their northern provinces. And the United States, we're actually debating on whether or not we're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya in Beijing at the Olympics coming up. I mean, I really feel like people need to get uncomfortable before things change. Your thoughts?
Yeah. If you're not scared right now, you should be. And if you're not scared right now, then you're ignorant. You can bury your head in the sand, but that's not going to change the ultimate outcome that we are currently in a consumer war with China. And we have been for a few decades. They own Hollywood. They are owning all of tech. They are currently trying to they've bought the continent of Africa. So hopefully we don't want to do anything there.
Wow.
And they're trying to buy all the real estate they possibly can here to include our corporations. So let's not mince words. We're at war with China. And you as a consumer, if culturally you can't embrace the military, if culturally you can't start loving the ideas of America and what it stands for, you can absolutely start demonizing and be eyes wide open about what China is doing and has done, and start voting with your dollars. Start supporting American made, start supporting American owned companies. And hopefully at some point you will pull your head out of the sand and realize, I pray not too late, that we are in the middle of a war, an economic war.
Absolutely. Tim Kennedy, we always appreciate your service to the country and your commentary here, and your fighting as well. We appreciate you all around. Tim, always good to see you, my friend.
Appreciate
Godspeed.
it. Yeah.